Welcome to Witchcraft Beyond the Basics, lesson number 2. Last week we had a few daily exercises. There were some recorded meditations that I recommended that you go through daily. Also, you had some lists to do, getting ready for banishing, and also getting ready for creating things. And I asked you to write an essay. So hopefully you did all that. If you didn't, maybe you can get that done over the next week. There's going to be a lot more homework this week. If you're not used to doing daily work and practice, or if you're not familiar with doing magic on a regular basis, that first week might have felt like a marathon. I try to keep everything somewhat reasonable to prevent burnout, and I don't want you to think, oh, I can't do this. The good news is that the list making is something that you can continue for the rest of your life. You don't need to start a new list this week. Just keep up with the existing ones. See them as a living document that you keep working on and refining. The things that you're getting rid of and the things that you're wanting to draw to you or create. It's very beneficial to remove things from your list and add new items, especially as things start to manifest, which they will. Don't see this as a one-time task. Treat your lists as living, breathing documents, and try to work with them at least once or maybe twice a week. The 3 meditations last week that I provided you with are intentionally short. And I would like for you to continue with those 3 meditations, and you'll keep doing them throughout this entire 6-week practice. If you decide to do them without the recording, that's great. Since they're so short, you can memorize the whole process for each one, and you can do them all on your own. Or you can just keep using the recordings if they help you to stay focused. However you like to do it is fine. For the morning meditation, you're blessing your entire day by moving an orb of light into your day's energy field, assessing what the future might hold. If you notice any stress, then you use the light from that orb to release that stress so that you can recalibrate your energy and focus on how you want your day to look. This doesn't mean that you're not going to have surprises throughout your day, but by recalibrating your energy at the start of your day, you'll reduce the amount of stress that you bring into your day from bad moods or fears, etc. You'll start to understand that you do have the ability to set a positive tone for your day. At any time during the day, a quick orb of light meditation can help you to regain your sense of control. If something isn't going your way, you can transform that energy emotionally and mentally, and this will reflect in the experiences that you have. This does not mean that life doesn't continue to present challenges to you. We all have our lessons to learn. Just like at the gym, if you never push yourself or break a sweat, you're not going to make any progress. The key difference is that with the right mindset, you don't mind breaking a sweat. It becomes fun. This approach makes life's lessons joyful. At the end of the day, the evening meditation helps you to reflect and to recalibrate again. And you can send positive energy back into the immediate past to reset unfavorable energy patterns. And this allows you to start fresh. Then as you move into sleep, you set a goal for your deep mind to work on, like a project or an issue perhaps. This allows your deep mind to solve that problem while you're sleeping. Before sleep, turn your focus into a simple phrase and repeat it to yourself as you're entering your sleep. And then your deep mind will be able to be on the job for you. All of these exercises that I give you only take you a few minutes each. You can easily fit them into your day. Morning meditation with your coffee, evening meditation as you settle down, the orb of light meditation in just maybe 3 to 5 minutes. Keep everything short and manageable. Now I'm going to start to add a couple of things to your daily practice this week. First, I want you to start keeping a magical diary. It can be anything, a fancy journal, a simple notebook. The key is to keep it simple. Every day, write the date and note any magical work you did that day. Include any insights or responses that you have about your practice. Also, when you notice results from your magic, you want to jot those down as well. This should only take 1 or 2 minutes. For example, you can write, I did my morning and evening meditation, everything went well. Or I skipped my evening meditation, but did my morning one and I felt stressed. Even if you did nothing, write down, I didn't do anything today. It's important just to be honest with yourself and allow your diary to be an accurate reflection of your practice. If you feel inspired to write more, absolutely go ahead, but you don't want to feel that you must write lengthy journal entries unless you feel inspired to do so. You want to keep it easy and consistent. Another thing you'll be adding is a magic mirror exercise. So I want you to try to do your magic mirror exercise every day, but don't worry if you miss a day. You don't want to feel bad about yourself if you miss a day. Just do your best. This is something that you will incorporate into your long-term practice anyway. It doesn't matter if you are perfect in your practice. So just get a mirror. It can be a small mirror, a big mirror, whatever you prefer. It can sit on your altar or it can be a handheld mirror. Personally, I like a handheld mirror because it feels like an extension of me when I hold it. But if that doesn't work for you, choose a mirror that you can place on your altar and put away when not in use. Avoid hanging the mirror permanently because it can be distracting. You want to keep this for magical work. You'll be doing a mirror exercise at some point during the day each day, as described in your homework. And it might be helpful to have a pen and paper nearby to jot down any responses that arise. Often these responses can be negative responses, and that's very important data to have. In the craft, we don't shy away from learning anything negative about ourselves. We want that data because those negative things that we're carrying about in our mind may be responsible for some of the manifestations in our lives that we don't want. So we want to know everything going on in our minds. You're going to look at your eyes in the mirror, just gazing gently at your eyes. And you want the lights dimmed. Candlelight is perfect if you can do it. Just not a bright reflection. You want to see your inner self in that mirror. So you'll just gently look at your eyes and tell yourself you are beautiful, you are powerful. You deserve to have all that you desire. I love you and approve of you right now exactly as you are. And you don't have to do that exact phrase, but something along those lines. And you want to repeat this several times, looking directly, gently, softly into your eyes. Notice the reactions that you have both in the mirror and also internally, and write those reactions down. Keep a journal of those thoughts, because remember, magic won't happen in the way that you want it to happen if you don't love yourself. Why would you give yourself all of the good things you say you want if you don't think you're good enough, or if you hate yourself, or if you are angry with yourself? If you're constantly criticizing or bullying yourself, it's important to notice that and start doing that magic mirror exercise daily if possible. And this is something you can do for the rest of your life. Eventually, when you just fix your hair and do your makeup and you see your reflection, you're going to get used to saying, "Hey, I love you." And you'll start to mean it. It won't be a silly exercise. It may take some time to start experiencing that, but just start where you are. If it feels silly or stupid, write that down too. Do your best and go for it. Don't spend more than a minute or two on this exercise and just see what happens. Now, let's discuss the difference between magic and superstition. I want to be very clear that powerful magicians and witches are not superstitious. They are pragmatic. They have a very healthy skepticism. They rely on results to know if something is working. If you're not getting results, then it's not working. Don't justify it. Don't believe in something because of superstition. Many of the tools and symbols we use are ancient and part of our collective unconscious mind, or Akashic records. And we want to tap into those Akashic records without falling into superstition. Things like a broken candle means that your spell isn't going to come true. As a witch, all you need to do is bless the candle and throw it away and get a new one. The same goes for a broken mirror or walking under a ladder. Bless the mirror and move on. Bless the ladder and walk under it. A witch is not superstitious because they are not bound by those beliefs. Avoid getting caught up in any superstitious nonsense that might muddy your magic. Stay clear-minded and practical. We don't want to get into anything that's going to distract you from your success. We want to connect with your power. Think of life as having an intelligence, a supreme, infinite intelligence that makes flowers and plants grow, moves the planets around the sun, and creates the seasons. It knows how to turn oxygen into energy in your bloodstream. It knows how to digest your food, and it even knows how to grow you from an embryo. It can grow hair on your body and perform countless other functions. And this very same intelligence is what we tap into when we work magic. I promise you, this intelligence is not superstitious. It doesn't care about broken mirrors or ladders. Symbols can be used by your deeper mind, though, to communicate with you. So omens can definitely be something that work for you. There are certain symbols that carry meaning, and you can listen to and interpret those omens without being superstitious. Soon, you will become very well versed in the language of symbolism, which you'll be using so that your deep mind can continue to give you signs, omens, and indications of how and when your magic will manifest. And this is wonderful, but please don't confuse a symbol with reality. Be aware that we are focused on reclaiming our power and allowing ourselves to grow magically without being bound by arbitrary rules. Question everything, and you'll always be a much more powerful witch or magician. This week, we'll be focusing on waning moon magic. Even if the moon isn't in the exact phase of the lesson, go ahead and use the lesson. And if you want to wait for the appropriate lunar phase to perform the magic in the lesson, that's absolutely fine. If you're a little bit out of phase, though, during the course, you're still going to have good results if you just stick with the lessons. Last week, you created a list of things you wanted to eliminate and things to forgive yourself for and people that you might need to forgive. This week, I want you to review that list and choose just one thing over the entire waning moon cycle before the next new moon and perform a banishing spell on that thing. This will be the first spell of this course, and detailed instructions are going to be provided. You'll notice that you can download planetary correspondences as well as elemental correspondences in this lesson. You can find those on your lesson page. Take the list of things that you're trying to eliminate and just choose one. And then go through the list of planetary correspondences and do your best to identify which planet rules whatever it is that you're going to eliminate. Now, if you're not familiar with which planet governs everything, just take a little time to study it and do your best. It's not going to be the end of your spell if you're not absolutely accurate on your planetary correspondences. Just do your best. Once you've determined the relevancy of a planetary correspondence with whatever this is, then you can proceed with the banishing spell. So it can be anything on that waning moon list, anything. It can be a habit, it can be a circumstance, it can be a student loan, it can be whatever it is. Whatever the thing that is on the list that you have the most emotional response to, that's what I would focus on. For instance, speaking of student loans, if I wanted to get rid of an old student loan, I would look at the planetary correspondences. Now, Saturn rules debt, so I might use Saturn. Jupiter rules money and college. I might use Jupiter. It just depends on how I wanted to orient my spell. Since old debts seem to be fitting for Saturn because I associate it with things that have been around for a long time, that's the one I would probably choose. But you can choose your own planet. I tend to just go through the whole list of correspondences and just spend some time there if I'm not sure about which planet rules whatever it is that I'm working on. Those correspondences are much more detailed than the more simple list that I've provided in the Witch's Primer course. Even so, these are just the basics. You'll notice that there's an auric color for banishing and an auric color for invoking for each of the planets on the list. You'll see that for Saturn, the banishing auric color is indigo and the attracting color is violet. So for a Saturn spell in the system that we're going to be working on in this particular course, the auric color that we will use is that banishing color. For other spells during the waxing moon, then the attracting color would be used. You'll notice that Saturn is associated with some other colors too. Violet, indigo, black, brown, gray. There are other colors, but for the frequencies that we're dealing with in the spell work, use the auric colors listed here for the spell. When you are using the recording for the banishing spell, your orb of light will take on the auric color that you're working with. If you're using the banishing auric color for a banishing spell, that color will help to dissolve the energy pattern and thought form causing whatever that issue is in your life. The difference between banishing spells and other types of spells is that unlike Waxing moon spells focused on creating or attracting something. Banishing spells aim at eliminating and breaking up energy patterns. In spell work in general, you're building energy patterns, belief patterns, and thought patterns into a strong thought form, which then manifests on the physical plane. But with a banishing spell, you're breaking up an existing thought form. Whether you realize it or not, anything that you experience in your life is influenced by a thought form on some level. Even if it's something in your life that you want to get rid of and you don't feel responsible for, you have to recognize that there is a thought form in your mind associated with it. The only way that you can have power over that is locating that thought form, breaking it up, and eliminating it. And that's what banishing magic is all about. Dissolving those energy patterns you don't want, allowing you to release them, and then replace them with a thought form that you do want. Consider two people from the same neighborhood, same socioeconomic background, even the same family. Let's say they're twins. They grew up in the same household, had the same parents, same food, same opportunities. Yet one of them continuously struggles to find and keep a job, while the other one becomes the head of a company. What's the difference? It's not because of how they were raised necessarily. It's because one had a different thought form than the other. The one who struggles to get and keep a job needs more than just a job. They need to break the pattern causing this problem. And this is why we're starting with banishing spells in this course. Many might think that we should start with attracting spells, but we begin with banishing spells because we want to break up old patterns and then replace them. You have the entire waning moon cycle to perform this banishing spell if you'd like, which is beneficial because it creates a vacuum. Even if you only performed the banishing, regular spiritual purifications and meditations, you'd notice big improvements in your life. It's fascinating how this works. People often feel uneasy about banishing, but you don't need to. It's very cleansing. Before you perform a banishing spell, you need to clearly identify that which you are banishing. This is part of your homework. You take a pen and paper and write it down before you decide to carry out the spell. Write down exactly what it is. Let's say we're doing a spell using Saturn. I know I want to do this on Saturday because Saturn rules Saturday. You want to start your spell on the day of the week ruled by that planet. And while I'm waiting for that day of the week, I can get ready for it. So I can take that piece of paper and write down the name of the condition I want to banish. At the top of the paper, I might write old student loan. And then I would brainstorm beliefs and energy patterns and thought patterns that are keeping this situation unresolved for me. The reason this is in my life, and I keep completing that sentence over and over again. The reason this is in my life is. The reason this is in my life is. And I write all that down. Keep listing reasons. Even if I don't believe them, I just regurgitate them. I don't edit. Usually there's a lot of negative feeling, and there's anger, and there's frustration, there's disappointment. You want to write it all down as it comes up. Even resentments, blaming your parents, whatever it is, just write it down. Get it out on paper. And then on a separate sheet of paper, you can take each one of those thoughts and find a way to flip it around. We call these waning moon flips. This just takes another 5 or 10 minutes. It shouldn't take too long. If you've got a lot of thoughts, it might take up to 30, but it's time well spent. You only need to do this once for the specific item you're banishing this month. Let's say one of the reasons that I find that I have this debt that won't go away is because I'm terrible with money. So you just flip it around and you write, I'm very good with money, or I'm a financial whiz, or I'm becoming better and better with money every day. Or perhaps you had the thought, my parents never taught me about money. Flip it around to, I forgive my parents completely. I am now wise with money. I am now learning everything my parents never taught me about money. If you think I'm just not good enough, you can just flip it around and you say, I'm realizing more and more every day that I'm more than good enough. Just don't overthink it. Flip each thought around to the best of your ability and don't dwell on it. Just make the list, even if it feels silly or it doesn't seem to apply, and do those flips. Don't worry about the planetary hour for these spells. Just do the spell on the correct day associated with the planet. You don't have to worry about the planetary hour. To perform the spell, you place your list of negatives in front of you on your altar and listen to the recording. When the recording finishes, burn or tear up the list. Then read through the list of positives out loud once. and you're done. It's that simple. In the homework, you'll find some options if you want to make it more witchy, though. And I'd like you to add those as you desire to, because it does make it more fun and it does key you into the planetary correspondences better. You can use a candle that closely matches the auric color, for instance. It doesn't have to be a perfect match. If you can't find an indigo candle, a dark blue one is fine. You can visualize a deep, dark, vibrant indigo in your mind. Don't stress about perfection. Place your candle on your altar if you're working with a candle. Anoint it with a basic anointing oil, which can be, as we've stated, simply olive oil mixed with a pinch of salt. This works for all candle magic. You don't need different oils for each purpose, unless you want them. If you wanted to make a Saturn oil, you can. I've even given you some recipes in there. If you don't have time or resources to make the full recipe, just take one ingredient from the recipe if you want and use that in your oil. For instance, you could just use some patchouli in your anointing oil if you wanted something fragrant and specific to Saturn, because you can see that patchouli is one of the ingredients. Or maybe a little civet, or imitation musk, or cypress. Nothing fancy is required. You can just use the olive oil and salt. You can be as witchy or non-witchy as you desire, because what is it? Your craft. It's yours. To anoint a regular candle, all you do is take a bit of oil on your finger and start in the center of the candle and draw it all the way up to the wick, and then start back in the center and all the way under the base. Anoint your candle with your intention. You can even write a symbol or a phrase on the candle itself if you want to, with a nail or something like that. For a tea light or a jar candle, you can just anoint the wick, or you can just drop a little bit of oil on top of the wax. Once your candle is anointed and placed on your altar, if you wanted to use incense, you could use a basic altar incense. I've given you a recipe for that. And you can either burn it or put it in an oil warmer. And if you don't want to use incense, you don't have to. If you wanted something specifically Saturnian for your incense in this example spell, you could use the full recipe that I give you for the Saturn incense, or just use one ingredient from the formula as you prefer. You could just use some myrrh. You could burn some myrrh on charcoal. You could put some myrrh inside your incense warmer. If you were using an oil warmer, put some water in the oil warmer, and once the water gets hot, put a drop of the myrrh oil in there, and then you'll have the fragrance without the smoke. It's completely up to you if you use incense, which incense you use, how much you use, etc. Remember that the power of your spell doesn't come from your incenses, doesn't come from your oils, it doesn't come from your candles, but it comes from the spell itself. So you can use anything you want, what you have, what you can afford, or nothing at all except for your list and the recording. Banish poor eating habits with planets. If you eat unhealthfully because you want to stuff your emotions, maybe that's the moon. If you eat out of laziness, it might be Saturn. If lack of time and focus are the reasons why you don't eat well, then maybe you might use Mercury. There's a lot of different ways that you can approach how you're banishing something. There's not always one planet that is the right planet. It's what's the right planet for you. And more than one planet can work. It just depends on how you want to orient yourself. Many roads lead to Rome. Remember that even if you choose the, quote, wrong planet, you'll still see results. If you're unsure, use Mercury or the moon. Mercury is the messenger of the gods and will direct the energy to the right planet. The moon focuses cosmic rays right onto the earth and can adapt to whatever is necessary for your spell. So those are two catch-all planets if you really can't figure it out. But do your best to try to find the planet that you believe is correct. When using a candle in your spell, after completing your meditation, you have a choice, either to burn the paper with your negative thoughts from the spell candle and watch it burn in a fire-safe receptacle such as a prayer bowl, or simply tear it up and throw it away. You don't have to be superstitious. It doesn't make it more powerful to burn it unless you believe it does. Burning it symbolizes a release into the fire, which can be so powerful for you. However, if you don't like to burn things indoors, tearing it up is just as effective. It's considered good magical practice to let a spell candle burn down and out completely on its own. If you need to leave the premises, always snuff the candle out and light it up to burn it down later. Never leave a candle unattended. You can continue relighting the candle until it burns out for as long as it takes. A handy tip is to use a very small white tea light for spells. These tea lights don't burn for very long and have a metal base to collect wax and can be placed inside of a colored glass votive holder. This setup makes it so much easier to include the color into your spell without having to buy a bunch of different colors of candles. Bottom line, don't leave the candle burning unattended. I've had so many witch friends who have thought that they were invincible and ended up burning either their whole homes down or causing a very destructive fire within their home. Fortunately, nobody I know was ever harmed or hurt in those fires, but I know people who've lost everything because they left a spell candle burning unattended. If you're not present, snuff out your candle and burn it when you're around. Only banish one thing at a time, one single item at a time. Don't think that you can just put a bunch of items in one spell. One thing at a time. The more you focus on something, the more you start creating it. After you're done with burning that paper or tearing that paper up, this helps to dissolve those negative thought forms and move you toward what you do want rather than reinforcing the negative pattern. And we're trying to release something, to get rid of it, to dissolve it, to let it go. It's okay to banish something and name what you're letting go, but you don't want to dwell on it. Dwelling on it makes you start creating it and reinforcing it with your mind. Some people say that you should never banish at all because you're naming and focusing on something and that will create it more. But that's not a sound magical practice as far as I'm concerned. You have to be honest. You have to name the thing that you're banishing. It's hard to break something up that you pretend isn't there. During the waning moon, we focus on organizing and creating order where there is none. Magic loves order. When you're creating a void with your waning moon magic, you're creating space for something to move in and be created. So if you are bringing order into your life during that waning moon, it's showing your deep mind that you want an orderly resolution to whatever it is that you're breaking up. And since you've made another list of positives to take the place of the negative that you're breaking up, it's very clear to your deep mind. If you're using this time to not only doing those waning moon flips and banishing spell, but also getting things into order, then your deep mind is very clear about what to do and you have a lot more success. So focusing on organizing and creating order where there is none. This doesn't mean that you're supposed to become OCD. Just clean and organize a bit each day, just to give that sign to your deep mind that things are becoming more orderly and together. In your meditations, you'll also find a forgiveness meditation. You don't have to do that every day, but it's recommended to do at least once. And anytime you decide that there is something that you need to forgive. Your homework this week is to do the banishing spell, continue working on your goals and your lists that you started last week, and to incorporate mirror magic and a magical diary into your daily magical practice. Continue all of the meditations from week 1 as part of your daily practice. There's plenty to do, but don't feel overwhelmed. You have everything easily and clearly laid out for you in the handouts, so it should be easy to understand. You have plenty of wonderful lists that you can refer to for elemental correspondences, which we'll get into at another time, planetary correspondences, which you're going to focus on in regards to your banishing work. I've provided you with the circle outline. That's a simplified circle. We haven't really talked about working in a magic circle this week. We'll get more into that. But if you wanted to do your banishing spell in a circle, this is a more streamlined version of the circle than the way that we taught it in A Witch's Primer, because now you probably don't need so much explanation. You can have a much more streamlined circle. I've also given you some sample waning moon incantations to chant while you are before your altar. That's it. There's plenty to do. Get ready to banish something. It's a lot of fun. Get ready to start working with the auric colors. We're going to work on the auric colors both for banishing and invoking, and we'll get more into that as this course moves forward. You don't have to worry about getting all of those herbs and incenses and oils unless you want to. They are optional. So a lot of times people see those recipes and they think, oh, I've got to have all of those things. No, you don't. You don't have to use any recipes unless you want to. But if you want them, I've given you my favorites. All right, thank you so much for spending some time with me, and we'll be back next week with Lesson 3. Until then, blessed be.